What is up, nerds? Big Tommy T here, talking all about the Oceania expansion for Wingspan, and I'd also kind of like to take this opportunity to sort of re-evaluate my thoughts on Wingspan. So we have a full Our Thoughts video for the base game of Wingspan on our YouTube channel, as well as in the European expansion, and I've kind of gone on record as saying that I think Wingspan is sort of an overrated game. I really enjoy the game, but right when it came out, I remember it sold out instantly, and there were copies going on eBay for $1,000, and it won all these awards. And all my friends, when I lived in Orlando, they always wanted to play it. I had one guy who always brought it all the time. I wanted to play it over and over again, saying it was super great. And I always just thought, it's good, but it's not that good with everybody talking about it. And I said this in my video for the European expansion, and I didn't think that expansion really changed my mind. Now, does the Oceania expansion change my mind? Well, we'll get there, but yes. So the Oceania expansion adds a couple of things. Probably the most important one is that they changed the player boards. How the actions get better on your player board is different. First of all, they nerfed eggs a little bit, and they made the gaining resources and the gaining cards actions a little bit better, which is good, because eggs are really strong, super duper strong, especially when you have the egg thing built up a lot with a bunch of cards in there. If you can take an action to gain 4 eggs, that's 4 points. Some of these end game scoring cards that you get at the very beginning of the game are worth 4 points or something, and that you're spending the whole game trying to cultivate your strategy so that you get points with that. Or the end of round goals could be, 4 points or 5 points or something. Eggs are just really strong, and they nerf you down to start with only 1 egg, and they keep you on 2 eggs for a lot longer, which is good that they nerfed it down. I would have rather that they just made the other 2 even stronger, made everything. I just like games where everything's really strong, really wacky, and really powerful, but I just have gotten to the point now where I've accepted that Wingspan is just not that type of game. So as much as I'd love for it to steer in that direction, I know that's not what it is, so that's fine. But they have made the gaining bird food, what is it called? They have made the gaining resources action a bit better. And the card action a bit better as well. There is a new action on there that's actually a reset for both the bird feeder and the cards in the row. You can re-roll the dice yet again, and with the cards, the 3 cards that are available to draw, you can cycle through those now, which is good. But you may have even noticed in some of this video that I've been showing that I kind of already do that already. The rule is, I'm pretty certain that you can't replace cards until the end of your turn. So if you can draw 2 cards, you don't draw a card from the 3 face up and then replace it and then draw another one. But I don't play that way. I always play where you replace the card, because it's just more fun that way. You get to dig through the deck more, you get to see more cards. I'm certain you can say, well, strategically speaking, it's more, it's better to do it that other way because of this one bird card, the way it works. I don't care. It's my game. I want to play it that way, and it's a lot more fun that way. Again, there's so many cards now, especially when I have both expansions mixed in. They can barely fit into the 2 trays, the one from the base game and the one from the European expansion. So I really want to see all of these cards, or as many cards as I possibly can, so I want to be able to cycle through them a lot more. There is also now a wild resource, which is really useful. It's nectar, but not only is it wild, it has a couple other things that come with it. 1, it goes away at the end of the round. And 2, whenever you spend it, you don't just throw it back into the supply, you put it in a little stack on the sort of the row that you spent it on, right? So if you spend it for a bird card and the bird card goes in the bottom row, well, then you're going to put that nectar in the bottom row, and whoever has spent the most nectar in each row at the end of the game will get bonus points. So that's super cool. Not only did they add a wild resource, and also I think they added wild wingspan cards, like birds with wild wingspans, or maybe that was the last expansion. Honestly, they're starting to bleed together. I can't really remember, but they didn't just add a wild resource, which is necessary and would be cool. Okay, it's easier to have resources and to have more specific resources. I even had a friend once when we were playing just the base game of Wingspan say, is there any way to gain a specific resource? Because, the dice in the bird tray weren't looking great for him, and he wasn't even able to re-roll them at that time. Now, not only would he be able to re-roll those, but he could possibly get a nectar, which is a wild. it just really helps with some of the problems with Wingspan. But I'm saying not only did they do that, and I've been rambling, they made it a little bit more interesting by making it also worth points, and you want to diversify amongst the rows and all that kind of stuff. Really clever. I like that a lot. There's also a new bird power, the yellow one. Those are endgame scoring ones, but they kind of require you to do something or have something at the end of the game in order to do it. So you can, whenever you play those cards, you can kind of say, well, now I want to make sure that I end the game such that I am in a position to trigger this card and have it gain me a lot of points. One other thing I will mention is they do add more of those end of round scoring goal things, right? Except one of them just says no goal. And I honestly thought, I was like, oh, probably they came up with an odd number of new goals, right? And since these tokens are double-sided, they had to just, instead of leaving one blank, they wrote no goal. But no, it's actually in the rules. It says that the no goal one is you purposefully have no goal for the end of that round so that you get to keep an extra cube. So everybody for that game will have one extra action. And I think that is really clever. It almost sounds like a happy accident, like they really did need to have an even number of goals. And they're like, okay, come on, we need to come up with one final goal. It's like, let's just not do it. And then they're like, what'd you say? Not do it? No goal? Have an extra action? Yeah, that's totally what I meant. And I really like all of these new things. I like the new goal tiles. I like the new cards, the new card types. I like the nectar a lot. And probably the most important thing is I like the new boards. And does this change my opinion of Wingspan? Well, what I can tell you is that I recently went out and bought a bunch of sleeves and sleeved my copy of Wingspan. It took 18 hours. I watched 1,900 episodes of How I Met Your Mother while I was sleeving it, and I can barely get those cards to fit into those two things that they're packed in there. I don't even have the endgame scoring cards, the green ones. Those aren't even in those cases, which I guess they don't really need to be in there. But that should tell you that I actually really, really like the game now. I think I love Wingspan now. Now, again, I still stand by what I said when I said it, because it did take 2 expansions and really kind of fixing the game, changing the player boards and adding, better ways to get resources and more cards. And also I messed with the rules a little bit there, where I always replace the cards after somebody draws it. And actually I did play one game where instead of, how you have your opening hand of 5 cards and you have to spend a resource for every card you want to keep? I played a game where we didn't do that. We just kept our opening hand of cards and one of each resource. And that was a little much, I will admit. I'm like, okay, I see why you don't do that. But I mean, it was still a good game and it was still fun. We still had a good time. Like, you never felt starved. Like, right from the get-go, you felt like you really hit the ground running. And, you had all the resources you need, and it felt very plentiful instead of really tight. And it's something that, okay, the replacing a card rule, that's probably something I am going to do every time whenever I play Wingspan, unless I get somebody who's a real stickler and doesn't want to do that. But that's just like a rule that I'm like, okay, when I play Wingspan, that's the way I'm going to do it. I probably won't, every time I play Wingspan, keep our starting hand and starting resources, but it's something I might do every once in a while just to mix it up and make it a little bit more wacky. I'm also thinking that I will probably never play with the original player boards again. I'll probably almost always play with the new player boards from Oceania. And even if we aren't playing with all of the expansion stuff, right? Like, if I feel like I'm teaching somebody the game brand new, which actually I did teach it to one of my buddies from work who doesn't play games a whole lot, and I had both expansions mixed in there, he was totally fine. He actually beat me. But even if somebody doesn't want to we don't want to use the wild resource for whatever reason, we can just ignore that part of the board. I still think the way that the boards are structured now, it makes a lot more sense, is a lot more balanced, and it's just, I think they're just better boards. I think if this is how Wingspan first came out, like if it had this many cards and the boards were like this and it had the wild resource, if this was how Wingspan originally came out and this was what everybody was hyping over and spending $1,000 on eBay to get a copy of for, I would probably understand it a bit more. I probably would have been on the hype train at that time, and I would also say that I love it. I mean, I can say I love the game right now. I actually love the game. I sleeved it. I'm definitely keeping it in my collection. I'm really excited to for the big box to come out, so I don't have to carry around all 3 boxes every time I want to play it. I think it is phenomenal. I think it's safe to say that Oceania is the better expansion for Wingspan. Like, when you buy the Wingspan base game, I would probably say buy Oceania first, and then buy the European expansion. And even at that point, you probably won't even notice the European expansion. Again, I like the European expansion. I like more cards and stuff, but honestly, it's something that I almost don't really notice, It's just the Oceania just changes it up so much. It's it's definitely the better buy. It pushed me over from like it to love it. So I highly recommend Oceania, and I recommend Wingspan in general. I also recommend Game Toppers. They're hella dope. They're awesome. They're our sponsor. You should check them out. We get a link in the description box down below. Also down there is going to be a link for Wingspan and both the expansions, so you can get yourself a copy. But also there's going to be a button down there that says subscribe, because if you subscribe to our channel, you will never be bored.